It's another Wednesday, another episode. Thank you for all who help us to broadcast this unique program. I want to welcome our listeners in Maine and around the world. Here are our headline stories. Art has the power to transform a workspace into another environment. Our guest, Titi de Baccarat, designed the piece of art for Allagash Brewing Company. Don't miss this story. One of the missions of Portland's Office of Economic Opportunity is to serve low-income people of various races and ethnicities by increasing opportunities for social inclusion and creating pipelines to the workforce. We recently talked with Sahloul, who was recently hired as director of this key position. New England Arab Association in Westbrook is profiled today. Don't miss our coverage. Indigo Arts Alliance presents an important symposium May 19th and 20th. It is called Art in the Wake, Reckoning and Remembering. Today we have Paul Gardullo, Director, Center for the Study of Global Slavery and Supervisor Museum Curator at the Smithsonian in Washington, here to tell us about the symposium. At Amjambo Africa, we bring new Mainers together with all Mainers. This is a collaboration between Amjambo Africa and WMPG of Southern Maine University, 90.9 FM. My name is Jacques Kuziman, and I'm your host. Thank you for tuning in. The city of Portland has hired Sahloul as the new Economic Opportunity Director. She will be focusing on improving opportunities for new Mainers. We recently had a conversation with her when she was still working in Lewiston. Take a listen. Marissa, tell me why this DEI is really needed nowadays.
So I think it's not that it's really needed, but it's coming around full circle. So I heavily believe when you do DEI work, you should have an understanding of history and American history and how it plays a part as to where we are now. Some would argue that DEI was in the 1950s, 1960s when we first integrated our workforce. Historically Black Americans and historically white Americans merging together, and that was the first time we saw it on a federal level. And what that caused, how we faced barriers, and how do those patterns happen now. I think because we are evolving, that concept looks different, but it's still active. So people are still asking the same questions in different ways. How do we integrate better? How do we create inclusive cultures? How do we mitigate biases, especially when leadership is taking a hold in organizations and trying to reach out to diverse populations? How do we welcome you in, and how do we make sure that we keep you and create a good experience for you? That is why it's needed. I think fundamentally we're looking for different ways to treat people as people and making sure that we have a workforce that speaks to our community, speaks to our mission, and speaks to what we want people to feel like when they work for us.
Can we say that there is a crisis or there is a total lack of inclusion, diversity? Is that something that you can attest to and say, well, I think this is very really needed, and there is that huge lack that you can see by bare eyes?
So I wouldn't say there's a total lack of inclusion. I don't think that's what's happening. If you're looking solely based off of what your eyes perceive, it might look that way, but it's because Maine is a white state and it's newly welcoming diversity at quicker rates. So that might seem to somebody objectively as there's an issue here, but there isn't. I think it's just that other states have had these issues and dealt with it throughout a longer time span, and Maine is just new. So I think in the state of Maine, you're grappling with, how do we do it? How do we do it quickly? How do we do it effectively? And how do we not cause trauma while we do so? And equitably is is the word. I think equity, then inclusivity. We get the people, and then we create the inclusive environments to sustain the people. That wouldn't be a crisis to me. I think things like this, when we are all entering a conference and you see 500 to 1,000 people here walking around trying to speak for their organizations, that doesn't scream crisis. That screams, look at these people trying to do the work.
You see that progression of immigrant-owned business, immigrants coming in the town. So how do you take that into numbers of contribution?
If I were to look at the statistics, it technically would be where they're supposed to be. If it's 96% white and then 4% people of color, then you would expect them to do well. I think year to year, it's just growing, right? And businesses, I get people in my office wanting to start businesses, and we're providing access to those resources, accesses to trainings.
I want to ask you how the DI notions of work can help Maine to fill the gap of workforce.
Yeah. So on a municipal level, because I deal with the residents, I don't call them workforce. I call them our economic developers. And I say that intentionally because when you, especially on a governmental level, label people as your workforce, you kind of separate the humanity out of them. And that is a problem for integration as a whole.
I totally agree.
So when you call them your economic developers, you're welcoming them into your city as a benefit, as something to make it better, change the median income and things like that. So I want to make that distinction.
Art has the power to transform a workspace into another environment. Our guest, Titi de Baccarat, designed the piece of art for Allagash Brewing Company.
My name is Titi de Baccarat, African artist, new manner activist, and I'm so glad to have partnership with Allagash Brewing, to make this wonderful bunch where everyone, without any exclusion, is invited to sit and to build friendship, to relax. That's so important. For me, it's a symbol of a space where people have the chance to meet new person. That's so amazing. We need this type of project because, as we know, the state of Maine, months after months, we are getting people from Africa, but also from other places, and they decide to make Portland, Maine, a home. So it's always great to welcome them, and those persons want to build friendship, want to be part of the family. They are new manners, and that's so amazing. This is one of the aspects that I like about Allagash Brewing. Is about the opportunity that they gave me, but not only me, but also to many other people who are from abroad, to know that they have their place in the state of Maine. Not only they have their place in Maine, but they are really the place in this society, and that's so amazing.
What do you think those values, learning, listening, and acting, should be in a company that is running business?
Yeah, but that's great, because for me, when I came in this company to make this project, I wasn't sure about how the final project looks like. There's always a space for me to learn, and I found the same thing in this company. So we collaborate in the level of mutual respect, and we exchange knowledge, we exchange skills. So we should always learn and listen and act, because for me is the question, a social question is, how can we build together? How can we, each of us, bring what is skills, is knowledge, put them together and build something good for the the society, good for the community.
So I'm Rob Tod. I founded Allagash Brewing back in 1994, 1995.
So how did the idea of Titi connect with Allagash?
So it's a story that goes a few years back. So I don't know how we ultimately connected, but we were very inspired and moved that the statement that we made resonated so much with someone in the community here in Portland. So we got introduced. I'm not even sure who introduced us, but I remember like it was yesterday when we first met.
Yes,
it was at Local 188,
exactly,
right across the street from the installation, and we had some beers, and we talked about doing art installation here at the brewery, because we get about 150,000 people a year from all over the country. So we were really interested in an installation that spoke to our core values, and our purpose here is to brew with integrity, and of course that's a very important part of what we do here. We all come to work every day to brew wonderful, thoughtful, unique beers, but not only is it brew with integrity, it's build community, and that's something that's very, very important to all 150 employees here. And we really looked at an installation like this as an opportunity to really make some progress on the build community front here at the brewery.
Can you tell us about your history of welcoming new mainers in the company?
We work on a lot of fronts. We have a great relationship with Claudette at In Her Presence, and she supports women immigrants in the Portland community, and we've worked quite a bit with her. We actually, right out in this space here, we've done this a couple times, and our employees love it. We do mock interviews with new Mainers where English isn't their first language. They might know 3 or 4 languages, but obviously it's hard to do a job interview if English isn't your first language. So we work with new arrivals to Portland, working on the interview process and interview skills.
So you have people in the company already?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and this is just employees who work in the brewing department, accounting department, sales department. It's a great opportunity. Again, build community it's a huge part of what we do, and I feel like our employees really welcome the opportunity to do work on that front.
The New England Arab American organization in Westbrook is gearing up to fight hate crime through a partnership with a future without violence. On this program, we visited the organization and talked with...
My name is Sahloul. I'm the founder and executive director of New England Arab American Organization. I moved to Maine in 1997. In 2010, I started seeing a lot of more people from the Arab community, and I started being involved with them. And 2014, I needed to be more involved and help out the community. And we started the NEO, and in 2016, we became 501c3.
Wow. If we can, in a big summary, what are the achievements?
Oh, big achievements. We are so proud that we are the only organization that helps empowering women from the Arab community. We had them to find opportunities for success. We help out our younger generation also to pursue their dreams. We have so many around education. And recently we have some work with the men of the community, so we really do our best to make Maine our home and to make our new Mainers feel that too.
Let's talk about Arab women. So why is it critical to empower them and to help them?
Yeah, coming from an area of war where women, really during the war, you find yourself most of the time in hiding or taking care of your family. And little by little, if you stay in your home long enough, you feel, okay, this is your role, is to only take care of your family. And you lose some of that self-confidence that you can do a lot more. And what we do through art, through music, is to bring this belief in themselves. And we started making them feel that, yes, you can, there is nothing impossible, and for them to pursue their dreams. And we are with them every step of the way.
So how can you analyze for me the change culture-wise? We know the Muslim culture when it comes to women, and it's their culture, and women, they accept it as a culture, and that's okay. But suddenly they are moving to America, they start raising kids in another culture. How do you analyze that shift? How do women behave in similar circumstances? How do you manage that shift so that probably you keep your culture and also you don't be harsh on kids who want to feel Americanized sometimes?
Yeah, like definitely there is a big change in the culture. So from an environment that you feel you're supported by your neighbors, your families are there, everyone is there, to a place where you come and you are all alone. And definitely there is big fear. There is a lot of over protection, let's say it, of their kids. And definitely children feel that they are in a dual places where at school they need to behave in a way and they come home and they behave totally different. And again, this is where our role as a cultural broker is to help out and empower the families to know and trust the community that where their kids are going and starting to build new relationship, have new friends and so on, to get to know more this community, to trust people more, and also to create opportunities where they can come in contact, where they can have lunch with these people working with their children or protecting the neighborhood, like community policing or others from different agencies where that interact with their kids. And I think by having that support system and by believing that they're not alone and by their love to their children, I think we're all adapting and we're all respecting to the changes. Some probably are accepting it a little easier because maybe they have the capability of reading more about it, contacting more people, but others are taking it a little slower. And again, this is where our organization plays that role.
All roads lead to Indigo Arts Alliance this weekend, which will present Art in the Wake, Reckoning and Remembering, a 2-day symposium. In this show, we have one of the speakers here with us.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you for having me at Amjambo. My name is Paul Gardullo. I am a curator at the National Museum of African American History and Culture, and I also direct the Center for the Study of Global Slavery there. And this museum is part of the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C.
You are invited to be part of this symposium, and the naming of the symposium, it says Art in the Wake, Reckoning and Remembering. What can you tell us about that combination of words?
Yes, we're very excited about this symposium that we co-created and are co-convening with our partners Indigo Arts Alliance and Atlantic Black Box. And this symposium is about filling silences. It's about helping communities think about the history and the legacies of slavery and colonialism, and how we need to understand that this past of oppression, of forced migration, of violence, still structures our world and our society and our communities today. Whether we live in Africa, whether we live in New England, whether we live in South America, really anywhere in the world. we need to begin to have conversations about this history and its relevance and resonance to our lives. And that's one of the aspects that we really wanted to talk about in this symposium. But we wanted to talk about it not just from a perspective of histories of oppression, which are vital to fill silences around. But it's also vital to fill silences around practices of freedom making that people of African descent, that descendants of enslaved and colonized people have practiced for centuries and are still working with today. And because we feel like these practices are often left out, not just of the conversation, but out of our places and our archives and our museums. And so the best way to bring about new stories around these subject matters is through art and creative expression, by professional artists, but also within ourselves. And so that's what we're doing on Friday night and Saturday, is tapping into our inner creativity and empathy to find the connections from this history, to find places of healing, and also to tap into a deeper sense of community with people who are like us and people who we may feel like are not as much like us, but we need to connect with and find room for and tap that creativity around.
Maine is populated with a vibrant community of new Mainers from Africa or from other sides of the world. And when you were talking about correcting those memories, it reminded me that African countries are struggling to bring back their colonial historical parts or historical monuments or art, piece of arts that are stored in European Museum, Belgium, France, So are you having any global partnership in those movements too?
We do have a global partnership for this exhibition, and the work of the Center for the Study of Global Slavery is all about international collaboration. So one of the projects that we have is a project called the Slave Wrecks Project. And most simply, it's about looking for the remnants of slave ships that wrecked in the Atlantic and Indian Oceans, on this brutal trade that made our modern world. But more so than searching for the ships, the project is about searching for a common sense of shared justice. And so the work is about training a new generation of African archaeologists, for instance. And we just had a training session in Dakar, on Gorée Island, where people from Senegal, where young archaeologists from Senegal, from Côte d'Ivoire, from Benin, and a gentleman from Haiti came together to learn the techniques of diving underwater and participating in this work so they can be the leaders moving forward in driving archaeological practice on land and underwater throughout the world in the next generation. We're participating in an international collaboration, a curatorial, an exhibition one that is creating an exhibition that will begin at the National Museum of African American History and Culture and travel from our museum to Brazil, to South Africa, to Senegal, and to Europe, where curators will collaborate from each of those places on telling a story of slavery and its legacies and Black freedom-making practices. And so when the exhibition lands in a certain place, it will be activated by artists and curators and people from the communities of those places to have conversations similar to the one that we want to have in Portland this weekend.
Let's talk about the denial movement that is on lies. So we see the banning of books, we see that push to erase the history, especially when we talk about slavery, when we talk about the injustice that has been happening in this country, in this world. So do you have hope that we will be able to keep track of the history, or that push is going to win over sometimes?
I have great hope. I know that there is a significant movement to shut our eyes to looking at the whole truth, the unvarnished truth, as our mentor, the great historian John Hope Franklin, told us that we must do. Let's tell the unvarnished truth of our history. But I have great hope that that we will continue to shine a light on all the dark corners of our past and relate them to our present. And the reason I have hope is I get to go into my museum every day, where we've welcomed close to 10 million people since we've been open. And I get to witness people walking through the museum, thousands every day, witnessing history, being changed, being moved, and asking for more. And that is what I rely on to be my barometer of people's acceptance of truth-telling when done with humanity, when brought to a human-sized scale, when helping people understand that we need not fear the past and the truth of the past. It can only make us stronger. That's what gives me heart, and that's what gives me hope. And it's borne out every single day in our museum and in community programs like the one we're having this weekend. So we just got to keep on spreading the word and ensuring that especially our young people understand that it is that we should never be afraid of learning.
Stop the violence, we want an Africa, for the African, yeah, we Africa.
And we have some important tips. They help us to navigate life in Maine. Have you recently lost your job or had your hours cut? The Peer Workforce Navigator program has worked with hundreds of people who were laid off from Abbott Labs in the past few months. Unemployment insurance provides the weekly payment to laid-off workers. You are likely eligible for help if you have lost your job, although unemployment insurance will not replace the future full amount of your previous salary. The average weekly benefit in Maine is $450 with an additional $25 for each child in your household. For help applying, you can go to a Maine Career Center or contact the Peer Workforce Navigator Project. The current clinics are held on the first and third Wednesdays of every month at Gateway Community Services, 124 Canal Street, Lewiston, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Also on Fridays at Prosperity, Maine, 175 Lancaster Street, Portland, from 9:30 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Conflict, my land, was still extreme poverty. Yet you have the diamonds in your land, all the wealth in the hands of some groups.
The beautiful melody you are listening to is from Clarisse Karasira. We thank her, and the drums are from Yves Karub. Thank you for allowing us to use your talents. And we have come to the end of today's Amjambo time. Thank you for tuning in. Please keep an eye on WMPG and the Amjambo Africa website for a podcast of this show and more news we are covering in Maine. And remember, Amjambo time alternates with our newest show, Wiriwe Maine, on air in Kinyarwanda and Kirundi on alternate Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and available by podcast at amjamboafrica.com. And stay tuned for news about Bonjour Maine, our newest podcast, out soon to be broadcast entirely in French.
Malan, give the chance your young boys and girls. Stop the lies, stop the violence.
Amjambo Time is brought to you by Jaha Kuzimana. Have a great day.